Today we're taking a tour of one of the finest gardens in the Blue Ridge Mountains. You won't want to miss it, so stay tuned as we garden smart.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs. Our goal is to leave you free to just enjoy your garden. Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs can be found at local garden centers across the country.
Memphis Wood Fire Grills with our patented IntelliBurn technology and convection oven cooking. Sear a steak, roast vegetables, bake cookies, or smoke meat. Memphis Wood Fire Grills.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 80 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
The Jaguar F-Pace.
Nestled in the beautiful North Carolina mountains is little-known Sapphire Valley. Teeming with wildlife and amazing views from every angle, it's a gardener's paradise. From majestic waterfalls that are fed by pristine streams and mountain peaks that frame the landscape, it's hard to imagine a more idyllic place to put down roots. Today we visit the garden of Maury and Hank Booth, affectionately known as Two Ponds, to talk about their love of plants and how they built their little piece of heaven. Hank, Maury, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, and thank you so much for having us. It's such an honor to be a part of your show. And let me first say, welcome to Two Ponds.
Wonderful. Well, we've heard so much about your garden, and everyone told us you need to come see Hank and Maury's garden. So here we are, and I understand that there's a tremendous amount of work that's gone into this. So you of course bought a beautiful piece of property, but you know, it maybe needed some renovations and needed a little vision to bring it together. And there's a lot of work that you guys have done the last couple of years. Let's talk about that.
Well, when we bought the home, it was a lovely home, but it had not been loved on. Our thoughts were to create a lot of different places that people could gather. We wanted places you could sit and you could reflect on the beauty. We wanted quiet places. We love sound. We love the sound of water. We created some gorgeous water features I think you're going to really enjoy. Very peaceful, very relaxing, reflective. We had to create patios out of stones. We had to terrace some areas. It was a lot of work, and it wasn't a one and done thing. It took us a few years to really get to the point that we're at now, and even now we're still adding things, you know, each year, some little something here or there. So I think you're going to enjoy it.
Well, and that's the way that gardening is. It's never ending. I've never heard a gardener say, we finally finished our garden last year, it's done. But there'll always be something that you're looking forward to doing, or just the evolution of the gardener with the garden. And I know, as you said, water plays heavily into this design. You have 2 beautiful ponds, right?
We do. Hank likes to put it probably best, and what would you say is our theme here?
The theme is just to enhance nature's beauty. When we bought this place, it was nothing like it is now.
Right.
We renovated everything from the buildings to the landscape. The landscape has been almost a 9-year project. And we just wanted to enhance it and just make it as beautiful as it possibly could be.
Yeah, and you mentioned the hardscape. There's a lot of stone in this design.
Well, when we started this, it was like a painting, different palettes.
Right.
We laid the base down, and the base was really enhancing the hardscape around the ponds, which included the patios, also 2 nice water features that we had created. And then once we got through that, then we brought in some landscape expertise and started creating the softscapes that go with it. We also did terraces. We brought in over 200 loads of rock.
Wow.
Virtually
We
every
did.
rock you see out here is something we brought in. And at the end, to create the patios, we brought in the capstone, which was all Tennessee flagstone. Brought in from Tennessee, 2 tractor-trailer loads of it, and then hand-selected and placed everything exactly the way we wanted it. We even went through the details of how we're going to grout the flagstone. We've been through several iterations of that, but once we got all of that done, then we started on the softscape.
Wonderful. Well, I know that there's so much to see. Let's go take a walk through the garden.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'd love it if you guys could kind of give me a little bit of a walking, talking tour of the garden, just an overview if you can.
Well, you know, we wanted a sense of entering into a whole different setting. We wanted it to be private back here, so we kept some of this privacy. But as you enter in, you know, you're curving around our hydrangeas, which are usually beautiful, but we're kind of wrapping up the season now. But limelights are still pretty. But you enter down here to, this is an upper parking area for the guest cottage. And the guest cottage is really situated well. It's in between Lily Pond, which is the lower pond, and Secret Pond, which is our upper pond. And we call it Secret Pond because it's a secret. Nobody knows it's there unless you come out here.
Yeah, even driving in, we couldn't see it from the road.
I
It
know.
is truly a hidden gem.
It is, and it's beautiful too. I have to tell you, you're going to love it. So, so we were creating an entrance, if you will, into its own little special secret area.
Wow.
So as you go down the pathway here, you will see one of the 3 arbors that we have on the property that were handmade, locally handmade.
Let's talk about the lower Lily Pond and the water features that feed into it.
Well, Lily Pond was a gorgeous pond when we bought the place, and it had an invasive Chinese lily that was growing in the pond. So over a period of years, we kept cutting it back. We think we've eradicated it, but now we're going back and placing various types of lily pads with different blooms, different colors, different colored leaves, something we can control without having to use chemicals or anything else. And we've nurtured the fish. But at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure that that pond would thrive and be a great place for not only people to come and reflect, but also for the animals to enjoy and live.
Speaking of animals, throughout the garden, one of the wonderful, whimsical features that you have are these amazing sculptures. I love putting art in the garden. They become amazing focal points, and there's almost always a great story behind those. And I'd love to hear the story behind the many wonderful little animals that we find in your garden.
Well, we can start with the totem poles. We have a true totem with 6 or 7 different animals topped with an eagle. And in our previous home, we had a log home up here, and we had this oak tree on the side of the house. It was probably a 30-inch caliper oak tree. And for whatever reason, it died. So instead of cutting it down and using it for firewood, we found this old mountain man up here that was a chainsaw artist, and his name was Mountain Dan. And we asked him to come over and look at our tree. So he came over and he stood there and looked at it. He said, "I think this would be a great totem." So we turned him loose and he carved this beautiful totem pole. And then about 2 years later, we had a tree right beside that. That was a maple tree, and it died. And then we called Mountain Dan to come back, and he said, "I'm going to carve this one into a bear pole for you." So he did, and we said, well, if we got a bear pole with cub bears on it, I said, we need a mama bear. So he took this huge piece of pine and carved this 600-pound mama bear. And that's how it all started. When we sold that house and moved here, we made sure that we took our totem poles with us.
Of course.
So we cut them down, brought them over here. Me being the general contractor, I mounted these things so they'll be there forever. And throughout the garden, you'll see others. We've got probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 different wood carved sculptures. I've got a life-size wooden Indian on the back deck of the house with a headdress down to the floor. We've got bird houses. We've been collecting bird houses for 20 years. And we've placed them throughout. We've had little statues that we purchased over the years and placed in various locations to add some whimsy and some fun to the garden. And they're all over the 3.5 acres here.
I love the way that the paths wind throughout and around each corner. There's these little aha moments or these moments of surprise where it opens into some new vista or there's some really interesting piece of beautiful art. And it's just an amazing way of experiencing the woodland garden. So Murray, you've got a number of beautiful railings throughout the garden, many of them award-winning, I understand. Talk to us about those.
We have so many different transition areas, you know, rock paths and rocks you can skip over water features on, that it just felt like we needed some railings, but not just any railing.
Right.
Because we don't want to take anything too seriously in this property. We like to have a little whimsy, a little fun. So we found a company called Heirloom Ironworks, and we wanted them to be bronze. We had James Mosley come over from Heirloom, and he designed some beautiful things, beautiful railings. We have a sundial patio he also designed the sundial for, and we've won some international awards for design on them.
It's a beautiful personal touch, and you can have just a railing, or you can use each one of those elements as an opportunity to add something that's beautiful and personal to your garden, and you guys have done a wonderful job of doing that.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Of all the wonderful features in your garden, I think the gazebo is one of the most unique and spectacular. There's got to be a great story behind this structure.
Every time I'd come up with an idea, my husband would go, oh no, another one. But this one he loved because I envisioned a gazebo cantilevering over this beautiful pond, something we could sit and relax and enjoy, you know, when it's raining. And we had a friend of ours draw it up, design it for us, and another friend agreed to build it. So he harvested these locust trees on his own property and he numbered all the pieces and then carried it over here and reassembled it kind of like Lincoln logs, if you can imagine that.
Wow. The structure that this sits on, this foundation, this is no small feat. Talk about the base that this is sitting on.
Being an engineer, I want to make sure that this will be here for the next 75 years. So what we did is we wanted to make sure that we used all natural material here. So we have white pine that was sourced at a local sawmill here. We drained the pond down, and while we had it down, we decided we were going to case the rest of the pond with stone wall because we didn't want to lose the bank over here. So we completely encircled it with a stacked stone wall, and while we had it drained down, we put the piles in, made sure we didn't break the clay layer in the bottom. Bottom line is you could put a semi-truck on this, it wouldn't even move. So, and the weight of this, I have no clue what it is, but I'm guessing this is probably 40,000 pounds worth of locust on top of this deck.
So the take-home message here is that if we want a gazebo like this in our garden, we need to get you to do it. Water is so important to a garden, and just where we're standing right here, we can hear the water emptying into the ponds, these little waterfalls and gurgling brooks and creeks. There's not any corner of this garden where you can't either see or hear water, so it's kind of the theme of the garden. It feels like very alive, yet very tranquil at the same time.
I'm really glad you noticed that because that was really what we were looking for. We wanted people to have an experience everywhere they went, and we wanted them to hear water because water is lifeblood. It's essential to life, and so there's a lot, speaking of life, there's a lot of life, you know, that happens in and around our water features. You know, this one is flowing direct next to our guest cottage, as you can see, and it flows directly into lily pond. There's a lovely little waterfall down there. You can find all kinds of plants and animal life in here. When we were putting this in, the guys that were working over there were putting some rocks in, and all of a sudden I heard this hooting and hollering, and I happened to be over here, and I ran over to see what was going on, and Hank was walking over too, and there's a big coiled up copperhead.
Oh no.
Not the kind of wildlife you want, you know. So I said, guys, I'm an animal lover, but you can lay that one to rest. We were at a wonderful craft fair called the Leaf Festival. And it was actually the very next year, and I found this birdhouse over here, and it has a snake coming out of it. So we had to pay homage to the snake that gave its life for my water feature.
Indeed.
But as you can see, we've got, our anchor plant is the Japanese maple, but we have red maples as well around the property. So everywhere you look, there's a little touch of red, and this is my happy place.
I'm sure I can see it that entirely. One thing I love about these water features, and I think with any truly successful water feature, is the fact that they look like they've always been there. If you hadn't told me, I would just have assumed that this was native to the property, and you were just lucky enough to have these 5,000-year-old creeks. But no, these were all built, and I would say expertly so.
Well, we were fortunate enough to find two gentlemen up here that worked together to create these water features. A gentleman named Bob Dews and a gentleman named Tim Brown.
Extreme Ponds.
Extreme Ponds is the name of their company. Their whole MO is to make it look like it's been here for 10,000 years. Every rock in here was hand selected and hand placed. With certain rocks, it would take 3 to 4 hours to get it exactly where they wanted it, so they could get the flow that they wanted to have. The flow over the rock was the most important thing. They didn't want it to look fake. They didn't want it to look like somebody just stacked up a bunch of boulders. They wanted this thing to look exactly perfect. They spent 5 months building this.
Wow, you see the passion in their work. I think that's what makes this feature look like it's always been here, and certainly was worth all of the extra time, because you can't get that in a weekend.
All the rocks that we have out here, these two guys put in place. They were the foundation for what we were trying to create here.
Right.
And they did an exceptional job.
One thing I do want to see before we leave you is the weeping wall, because we've heard a lot about it. It's a very unique feature, and it was something that these gentlemen built as well, right?
Yes, they did.
All right. Well, let's go look at that one.
All right, come on.
So just off the main residence is this wonderful array of water features that I'm sure you love listening to when you're having dinner out on the back patio. And we've got this weeping wall, which is a very unique structure. We don't see many of these in the many gardens that we tour, and it's just such an amazing departure from the conventional water feature. And so, Hank, this is a little bit of a feat of engineering. So we're gonna turn this over to you.
There's a little bit of a story here. There's a feature adjacent to this. It's all one feature now, but we had that put in originally when we bought the house. And as you can tell, this home and property are at the base of a series of mountains. So we get a lot of runoff from these mountains and excess water. Water has its desire to go downhill always.
Right.
And all we can do is try to channel it where we want it to go. When we bought this house, the area behind you here that now has a pergola and it looks like it's always been the way it is now, was basically a 2-car garage. And this wall was not here. The driveway came down and went into this 2-car garage. And 20 feet down, we had 2 drain pipes that actually flowed from the street all the way into the pond.
Wow.
And over the years, over the 50 years that this home has been here, those drain pipes eroded away. And we didn't realize that they had eroded because they're buried 20 feet deep. Unfortunately, we had a collapse of this water feature. Half of it dropped 4 feet. We had to fix that. So we called Tim and Bob Dews. But in order to fix it, we needed to dig it up, figure out exactly what went wrong. And they did that, and they came back and said, well, the pipes are gone. The bottom's rusted out of both pipes. And by the way, you've got 5 springs that intersect each
Oh,
other
wow.
right under this water feature. And we decided, instead of just putting in more pipe and spending a ton of money to create a drainage system that nobody could see, let's make it beautiful. So we used that opportunity to build a retaining wall, to flatten out the driveway that was there, and I just told Bob and Tim, just make it into something gorgeous.
Right.
So they decided they were going to do a weeping wall. And what is a weeping wall? It's a retaining wall with stacked stone, and buried in this wall are 3 horizontal PVC pipes that about every 12 inches they drilled holes in. And they hook them all into the water system that we have, the circulating system here, hence the weep. But the other thing that's really cool about this is that underneath all of this feature is a heavy layer of rubber. It's a rubber mat. And that mat goes all the way up to the house.
Wow.
So this whole thing, all these rocks that we're standing on, everything here is on top of a rubber mat. The other thing, there's several other engineering feats in here that Tim and Bob came up with that we thought were exceptional. These walking stones here, these large flagstones that go over this stream, are cantilevered, and the only thing holding them in place, the grouted stones in between the joints. The other thing that's really cool is they designed this so that one part of the existing water feature flows underneath this section of stones, circulates all the way around, all the way underneath these stones, and the force of the water coming out of the weeping wall pushes that circulation back out, and it goes out underneath this stone.
Oh, wow.
It flows back into the water feature, so you have a constant flow of circulation. The water stays nice and clean and clear.
And very clear.
And it's awesome.
And the frogs love it.
I'm sure they do.
Oh, yes.
We have a frog symphony every night.
We do. They love
That's
it.
wonderful. Maury, let's talk about the plants, and then after this beautiful water feature was built, how did you start, plugging in the other little details that really made it sing?
We wanted something really special. I mean, there are a lot of ponds up here, but very few have the carnivorous plants in it like we do. Well, we started out with some pickerel plants here inside of the pond. And then on the outside perimeters, we have 6 different variations of the pitcher plant.
Yeah, the pitcher plants, and also many people don't know this, the Venus flytrap, which is sold all over the world, is native to like a little pocket of North Carolina and South Carolina.
I know. And we placed various plants that you see native to this area, hostas, ferns. We wanted it to be soft. I didn't want it to be formal. I didn't want it to be perfect. We have 3 bronze sculptures paying homage to our 3 sons.
Wonderful.
Much like the 3 bears on our bear pole, our 3 sons.
Maury, Hank, what a wonderful place. Thank you so much for spending the day with us.
Aww. And thank you for coming.
Indeed.
And feel free to come back anytime.
Oh, we will. We will. Each week we travel the country north to south, east to west, visiting some of the most exciting gardens, as well as talking to industry horticulturalists about design principles, new plants, and also how you can be most successful with your home gardens. We also love answering your gardening questions, so visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs. Our goal is to leave you free to just enjoy your garden. Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs can be found at local garden centers across the country.
Memphis Wood Fire Grills with our patented IntelliBurn technology and convection oven cooking. Sear a steak, roast vegetables, bake cookies, or smoke meat. Memphis Wood Fire Grills.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 80 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
The Jaguar F-Pace.
What an amazing day. I love the way the gardens transport us into magical spaces of beauty and tranquility. If you have questions about anything you've seen today, visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com. And remember, even if you're a master gardener, there's always more to learn. So join us next week for more great garden tips and ideas as we garden smart.